What is going on, my beautiful people? I want to wish you all a happy Halloween. I know it's the Wednesday before, but hopefully you got some big plans for this upcoming weekend. Hopefully you get some good candy. And, you know, the rut's going on here, at least in the southeast, so hopefully you'll be able to get some good rutting activity. I got some great footage coming for you guys of hunts. I know you haven't really seen too much this season. It's been pretty slow up until now, so hope you guys will stick around for that content. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on those bell notifications. That way you don't miss that. But according to the thumbnail and the title of why you clicked on this video, today we're going to find out if a pumpkin will actually make as a really good deer feeder for deer in my area. So let's go ahead, we'll get into the video. Alright, so right off the bat, we did have two different kinds of pumpkins. I didn't do too much talking while I was in the woods just because I wanted to try to keep my scent, my sound, everything like that to a minimum. So what we did was we had two different kinds of pumpkins because I wanted to see if they would eat the pumpkins. So we got some little bitty pumpkins. I cut those up. I'll show some footage of that. And then, of course, we had the big main pumpkin that we made, the jack-o'-lantern, and carved it on the back of the Polaris with just my pocket knife because I was planning on really just kind of cutting it up as well. But I figured we'd go ahead and we'd make it a jack-o'-lantern. So you can see that first day that we got it out was around 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock on the 11th of October. Well, that next morning, we actually had a buzzard come in. I don't know why. I guess maybe the buzzard could smell the pumpkin guts. I don't know. Maybe it thought it was a decaying animal. Not quite sure, but we did have a buzzard come in, and that was the only buzzard we had. A couple days later was when we had our first deer, and you could see that it was approaching with caution. So it was moving in real slow. It had its heads down. It was like, what exactly is this? And it left. So far, it doesn't look like the pumpkin's going to be too good of a deer feeder. Now, the next morning, or I guess a couple hours later that morning, we did have a bunch of does show up. There's 4 in this picture, and none of them really wanted to approach it. You can see that they walked all the way around this pumpkin and never really walked up to it. So it looks like the next photo we got on here was me the 16th. I was hunting, so I decided to stop by and see, you know, if anything had messed with the pumpkin. It looked like a little bit had messed with the top. I guess it was the buzzard from these photos. But other than that, it really didn't look like there was too much that had happened to it. The pumpkin itself was starting to rot a little bit. You can see some of that black mold growing. But other than that, it really wasn't too much activity. The next morning, so the morning I didn't hunt, we had a doe walk up to it. And of course, you can see that she actually kind of got close enough that she could eat out of it. We didn't really have a decent photo to see if she was eating out of it. But I would imagine with as close as she was standing to that pumpkin, she actually ate it. Now keep in mind, we're 6 days after we originally put it out, and we had our first deer get even close enough to this pumpkin to eat out of it. The 18th, at around the same time, 11:52, that's just when these deer tend to move through here, we had a buck. Now this is post cold front. We had a lot more activity after that cold front, but we had this little bitty buck come in. And it seems like he's actually close enough that he was eating out of it as well. So far we've had 2 deer in the 6-7 days that's been out. Next morning, or later that afternoon, excuse me, we had another doe kind of walk through, and not much occurred from there. Now, the 18th that evening, if you look in this photo, you can see that the pumpkin was actually busted. Now, by that previous doe photo, at 6 p.m. it wasn't busted, and then at 7:25 p.m. it was on the 18th. So, not quite sure what busted it, but if you take a closer look in this photo from 7:25, there's actually a raccoon that's leaving. So I imagine that raccoon somehow ended up busting the pumpkin. The next morning after that busted pumpkin happened, we had another buck come in, and he went straight up to that pumpkin and started eating. Later that evening, we had 3 does come in, and they started eating from the pumpkin. The next morning, the morning of the 20th, we had another buck come in, and, you know, he kind of walked through, but it seems as if he did, you know, at least not be spooked by the pumpkin. And then later that morning, we had a doe walk up, and she started eating straight out of it. She was quickly followed by a second doe and even a third doe. So we had lots of opportunities that day for deer to come up to this pumpkin. So that was the last little bit. Once we had those 3 does come through, I checked that trail camera a little later that afternoon. And yeah, that was all we had, was we had those does come in. So if you're going to use a pumpkin as a deer feeder, if you're going to put out jack-o'-lanterns and let your deer trick or treat to try to get some of that feed that I had put in that pumpkin, don't. The pumpkin itself, it spooked more of the deer than it did good. However, there was upside. You know, after that pumpkin busted, the deer did eat what was in the pumpkin, and it ate some of the pumpkin and everything like that. So if you're going to put pumpkins out, bust them up first. Don't leave them as a jack-o'-lantern like I did. But hey, luckily with this test, you know, you don't have to worry about it because I did that for you. But enough being said, let's go ahead. We're going to jump into the verse of the day. And I'm getting my app pulled up here to see what the verse of the day is for us. And this is going to be Ephesians 6:10. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in His mighty power. You know, God has got our backs. Even in the worst of situations, God is there. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for Thou art with me. Thy rod and Thy staff, they comfort me. We have Almighty God with us. He is all-powerful. He is everything. So, you know, you don't have anything to be fearful of. Even if it's the night while you're trick-or-treating, that darkness, the unknown, you know, don't worry about it. God's got your back. So, I love every single one of you. Thanks for watching. And always remember, when nature calls or God calls, you better answer. Peace out.